Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Thank you so much for joining us. And everyone, hey, hopefully you're having a great day. Today on the show, we have none other than Nathan Evans, Popzara magazine. We will connect with him in just a moment. And we have a whole slew of topics and lots of things to talk about. And, it's just going to be a fun time. It's going to be a relaxing Friday. And everyone, I hope all of you, have something really fun planned this weekend. Maybe even, hey, the Avengers, huge movie. I'm sure that's only going to make about $2 billion. And everyone, hey, welcome into the show. So before we get started with Nathan, let's go ahead and just mention computeramerica.com. That's where you'll find everything, including the show notes, links to any articles, links to our guest website. You can find it all at computeramerica.com. And while you're there, be sure to check out the articles. We have, of course, the latest review of the Glance clock. You can check that out. Just reviewed that a couple days ago. And on top of that, check out some of our past shows. We had a lot of interest in our most recent Tuesday's episode about social media and whether or not that's something that you should really consider either getting into, getting out of. It's a huge topic. Took the hour, and it was a lot of fun to talk about. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and get our guest in today. So as I said before, no stranger to the show, Nathan Evans, and let's try this. Today's interview brought to you by Skype. What else? So everyone, just 1 second. And Nathan, can you hear me?
I am here.
Hey, we can hear you. Perfect.
I am assembled.
Yeah, I was wondering how long that was going to take. So, but Nathan, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome into the program. We already started, obviously. And, before we get started, how's it going? How are you?
Well, it's funny you should ask, because I talked to my doctor today and he said, you know what, kid, you look great, but you're getting older, so you got to take it easy. And I said to my doctor, why do I have to take it easy? And he said, because your insurance lapsed. I said, okay, goodbye. No, that's a bad joke. I'm doing pretty good. The weather out here is nice. Got a stiff neck, but other than that, I've been called worse.
Okay, very, very cool. And hey, so of course, big week for movies and things like that. I see that you already have your review up of the Avengers, and we may just start there because it's so I haven't seen it, so I don't think I can give any spoilers.
Folks,
and hopefully you can't give spoilers.
This is called SEO writing. This is a prime example of Ben hijacking search engine optimization to get more traffic to this wonderful podcast / radio show / program, and I'm all for it.
But I think it's kind of hard because Avengers has been I just saw an advertisement for the Pixel 3 and the Avengers crossover, like the Google phone crossover. Avengers is everywhere.
Yeah, the Pixel 3, aka the Hawkeye of the phone world.
Ow.
You only miss it when it's not there and you're being told, and you have to be reminded it wasn't there. So,
isn't Hawkeye getting his own TV show or movie? He's getting his own thing.
No spoilers for you. I haven't seen the movie myself, because one of the advantages and negatives of being a managing editor is that I get to manage editors to go see things. Sometimes, most times that's crappy stuff, but in the case of the Avengers, that's good stuff. So I don't get to see the Avengers. My editors got to see it. I said a whole bunch of them. Thank you, Disney, by the way, for hosting the Popzara crew.
Very, very cool.
I'm going to be seeing it tomorrow. So I'll have opinions. But I will say this: apparently, Hawkeye factors quite a bit in the movie, and that is no surprise because they already announced that Hawkeye will be getting his own show on Disney Plus, the new subscription service.
That's it. That's what it was. Disney Plus, and I'm sure that we can mention Disney Plus a little bit later. But yeah. But back to the topic at hand. I mean, no spoilers. Just I don't know how many times I have to say that, but initial reactions. Yeah, because I've
talked to my staff. One of my other editors saw it this morning. He went to can you believe this? He lives. I don't know if you've met Chris Mitchell, but he actually lives in North Carolina like you do, and he went to go see it at 7:30 this morning, and the theater was packed. 7:30 this morning.
I believe it.
Ugh, people don't go to work, so. But no, I'm going to be seeing at the relatively sane time of 7 p.m. tomorrow. So. But no spoilers. I specifically asked them not to spoil it, but I don't think spoilers matter on a movie like this. But the fact is this is the most critic-proof movie I've ever seen. They could say this movie resurrects Hitler, and people would still see it. Nothing's going to stop people from seeing the Avengers. But I will say one thing though. I talked about SEO jacking. Can I tell your audience a little bit about how this works?
Sure. Go for it.
One of the things that people do, especially Disney has become, I say this as someone who just got tickets to go on the Disney lot, they're very good at manipulating box office for free publicity. We saw this with Rotten Tomatoes, with Captain America. We see this a lot. Captain Marvel, excuse me. Get my captains mixed up. You know what's funny? One of the first Marvel movies was called Captain America: The First Avenger. But if you saw Captain Marvel, they retconned her to become the first Avenger.
Right. So
they're making this up as they go along, which is fine. So, but anyway, what happens is, in order to get that record, like we just heard today that the Avengers broke the previous record holder for Thursday box office, which was The Force Awakens. Force Awakens made $57 million on a Thursday. Avengers Endgame made 60, so it's right up there. How did they get that extra $3 million? More showtimes. And what they do is theaters will open up at 7 o'clock instead of 11, you see? And that's how they pad the numbers. They increased the amount of showable times. Now, with a 3-hour movie, you need to do that anyway, because that's going to reduce the amount of replay value you can get. Right. But in general, you add more times, you add more theaters, and that's how you get that higher number. It's not necessarily because more people are seeing it, but more people are seeing it at the time. And therefore, you get free publicity, which works, as you just mentioned, and everybody works. It's a wonderful system that the only problem is, and people have complained about this, is that it turns it reduces the overall appeal of the movie long term because it requires it to be front loaded. Avengers Endgame will make most of its money in the first month, probably the first week, maybe even the first weekend, and then it will taper off. We don't really see the last time we saw a movie really play long for a long time is actually Jumanji with The Rock, a movie that opened up against Star Wars back in December and to like $30 million, but just stayed in the top 10 for like 3 months, and eventually it made almost $400 million. We really don't see that very much.
I was definitely thinking of Avatar, of course, where that was like a 6 to 12 month run. That was long.
Which, by the way, the last movie that had done that before Avatar was, ironically, Titanic.
Yeah.
Like these movies open up very small. So the idea that and the biggest movies in the world never open up the biggest. Like, okay, The Force Awakens did. That was an outlier. That doesn't usually happen. But generally speaking, a movie will open up big. It will make the vast majority of its money in the first week or so, and then it will taper down, and then things will go back to normal. And some people in Hollywood have complained of this, that it front loads movies so much we no longer have cultural attachment to them. Like, oh, it's the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one. Like, no spoilers here, but Avengers Endgame is being touted as the last of the movies.
Well,
no, you've already announced 50 more. It's not the last anything.
So, and there's a roadmap that anyone out there can go out there and find. It was they released it like years ago, and I think Endgame is like the although I think they announced that the next Ant-Man movie is going to be the actual transition, but this is kind of like the closing of, what was it, series 2 or round 2
phase 2 or round
phase 2. That's it.
That's so sterile, referring to movies as phases. You know, it's marketing blah blah blah. But
But I
or you could,
but I like it because it's something that I guess movies hadn't really done. You know, we always thought of movies as like trilogies or sequels or prequels, but to actually see the ambition of Disney or the Russo brothers or whoever you're going to credit for this, to say
no,
that
no, no,
hey,
stop. None of those people. I'm going to credit one guy, Kevin Feige. That's who gets all the credit.
oh
The
yeah,
producer of these. Yeah, he's the guy. Look him up. He's the guy that should get all the credit. He should get all the credit. He's the guy that masterminded this whole thing. He has produced 22 number one movies in a row. The only other movie franchise that has done that is James Bond. Nothing comes close. Nothing. Like the Marvel Cinematic Universe is the most successful movie franchise in history. It may remain that way forever if it keeps going. Unparalleled. The only other studio that has that type of track record is Pixar.
right.
And so Kevin Feige gets all the credit, all of
Well,
it.
still,
And
I definitely enjoyed the fact that they're looking at a series like the Avengers, like
mhm,
the Marvel Universe, and making this overarching, well, universe,
mhm,
as opposed to just, hey, like, let's say Star Wars is trying to transition. Of course, they're both from Disney, so
mhm.
it's whatever. But, it's
No,
like
that's a good
trilogy,
point.
trilogy.
That's a good
Yeah,
point. They're trying to Marvelize Star Wars, and I don't think it's gone as well as they would have liked.
not yet. They, with Solo, and even though people said they like Solo, they said they didn't see it. We have Solo, Rogue One, and of course the three trilogies. They're trying to, but I think what Marvel does with its franchise is just. I love the idea of it. I like that movies are kind of like book series now, where you can have in the same universe, but a completely different storyline.
They're basically a television show for the most part, which is ironic because the Marvel TV shows typically don't do very well, and whereas the DC movies, see, the DC movies are interesting because the DC movies have clearly tried to ape the Marvel style, but
Yeah.
they it's like a Chinese bootleg. They copy the body, but they don't copy the insides, right? Like we're going to do just like Marvel, but they don't necessarily fail. Like they don't lose money. People need to remember the DC movies make money. Aquaman made $1 billion. Wonder Woman made close to $1 billion. Like
Hmm.
even the crappy Justice League make money. They still make money. They're crap, but they make money. So no one's going broke. But then you have something like Joker, which is coming out this year, which I'm sure you saw the trailer for.
I did.
Which, yeah, everybody wants to see this movie apparently, and it has nothing to do with the other movies. It's a standalone. And I think that might be the way for them to go. I think they need to focus more on the characters they have. And one of the reasons the Avengers work so well, and forgive me for saying this, Ben,
Hmm.
is because individually, these characters aren't very interesting. Like, there's nothing inherently interesting about Iron Man or Thor or Scarlet Witch or whatever her name is, like especially Scarlet Witch. Like, there's nothing really interesting about these characters individually. They need that collaboration. And when you put a billion characters in a movie, or even 10 at a time, it works. It works because
Well,
the weaknesses are evaporate in the team.
it's
Whereas,
it's really the source material that they're pulling from, where certain things, like you could make a movie about Jesus, and the movie
which
about
they do,
Jesus,
which they do.
which they do many a times, and Jesus can stand alone on can stand on his own because he is a central character. That's it. The source material that they're pulling from for the Marvel universe, they're comic books, and even though the cover may say Batman, and going with the DC universe here, but even though the cover may say Batman, Green Lantern and Superman are going to make an appearance in that. Like, it's integral to what they're pulling from, which is the comic book series and the comic book universe. Like that's the enjoyment of it, is seeing those crossovers.
You know what's funny? I'm going to say something you might agree or disagree with, but I think one of the linchpins of the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe, it depends on three things. It depends on, like you said, it depends on the character and how it's done. I think having Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark / Iron Man was pivotal. I don't think
Of
without
course.
that, I don't think you have this at all. I think it's important. I think you have the right director at the right time. You have Jon Favreau, who's turned out to be a pretty good director, and he's handling. He got a movie coming out, The Lion King reboot, and he's got the
No.
Mandalorian on Disney Plus. But you also have, and I'm gonna tell you the heart and soul of this series, and I think it's Stan Lee. And I think now that he's gone, that I wonder how they're going to approach that because he kept things light. Because you're always, every time you go to a Marvel movie, you look for two things. You look for the Stan Lee cameo,
Mm-hmm.
and you wait after the credits for the stinger. And you're not going to get the Stan Lee cameo anymore. And I'm wondering what type of impact that will have, because Stan Lee was a connection not just with the past of these characters, but with comic books in general. And he became like a 95-year-old man became the face of Hollywood. And we joked about this last time, but Stan Lee was in more blockbuster movies last year than anybody else, just last year, and games. And he's gone now, and I don't know what effect that's going to have on these movies.
You know, it might be a spoiler to ask this, and you might not know it because you haven't seen the movie. But are we 100% sure there's no Stan Lee cameo in this one? Because
he's in the movie. I mean, they've already announced that he filmed all his cameos before. But if you saw Captain Marvel, they did the little opening thing where they showed the Marvel intro. They actually did a special one just for Stan Lee. And so, he filmed all his cameos, but he's done now. He's done. And so I don't they've attempted something similar with Matt Damon. Matt Damon has been appearing in these movies as cameos, but I don't know if Matt Damon quite has the cachet of Stan Lee. As a kid, when I was growing up,
Matt Damon in Deadpool 2 was really, really funny. I definitely
with the toilet paper.
No. He was the invisible dude.
No, that was Brad Pitt.
That was Brad Pitt. I'm sorry. Yeah.
I'm sorry. All white people look alike. No,
they do.
But,
they do.
No, Matt Damon wasn't Deadpool 2. He was the guy at the beginning when not Thanos, but you'd be forgiven for thinking that. When Cybernator Josh Brolin came down from the past, and those two guys were talking about toilet paper. That was Matt Damon.
Yeah. The rednecks. Yeah.
Yep. And he was also Thor in Thor 3.
Oh.
Thor Ragnarok. At the beginning, when Thor comes back and he's watching that play.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was he played the fat Thor was actually Matt Damon.
Yeah, it's but really, like you said, they do keep these movies late. Although I will say, just looking at some of the quote unquote reviews, everyone's saying that it's emotionally impactful. Everyone's giving it really good reviews. This thing is going to make buku money.
It's already made it. The question is, how much is it going to make? That's the thing. It's going to make. But the interesting is, how much will it make? I want to see how much it'll tap out, because for a movie that's been 11 years in the making, supposedly, and it's 22 movies in, will the residual of that be the same as what do you call it? Force Awakens, which still is the record holder in America, or will it tap out? I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what it does. Would it beat the Force Awakens record? It beat it by $3 million. Right. It's not a lot. That's not a big difference. That seems to be we seem to be approaching the upper echelon of how much these movies can make. You know what I mean?
That might be the line at which people just don't care about movies and don't bother spending any money on it. That's all the moviegoers. That's everyone.
Yeah, exactly. There may not be any more. But the interesting thing about the Avengers is that, unlike Star Wars, it does well in China. In fact, it's already made over $100 million in China. So that's what Disney really cares about. And that's why every new Star Wars movie will have more and more Asians in the cast, because Disney, I don't know if this is cultural misidentification, but Disney thinks if there's Asian movies in Star Wars, then Asian people will see Star Wars. That's not how Asia works at all. You want to get people in China to see Star Wars? Put Vin Diesel in it. That's how it works. Put Vin Diesel as a Jedi, and people will see Star Wars in China, but not Chinese people.
Well, that's a whole nother bucket of worms.
It's very interesting. Americans don't quite understand the Chinese box office. We don't understand it, but we need to figure out this Rubik's Cube so they can make more money. You understand? That's why a movie like Warcraft can make $400 million in China, but make $0 here. It's interesting.
They I know for a fact that they made at least $8 because I paid to go see that.
Yeah, but they don't make $8. Everyone gets a cut of that.
But I took 4 friends, so I'm sure eventually someone got $8. Look, the point is someone saw it here.
It made a couple bucks, but
right.
The fact is it was technically a bomb. It made money. It made money only in China.
Yeah.
And so we'll see how it goes.
Yep, absolutely. So with that being said, you said you were going to go see it tomorrow. I'm probably going to go take Craig to go see it this Sunday. And, even for our little town dead movie theater, which even the biggest even like the biggest movies, they have like a third of a parking lot. They must be doing something in the back. Like they must be like selling something illicit out the back, because I don't know how they continue to stay in business, but I'm betting even that movie theater is going to be packed with people to see this.
Sure. I think it's fun. I think a movie like this, even if the movie was bad, which I hear it's not, you go see it with friends. It's an experience, and everyone is talking about it, and that's something we don't get anymore. We really don't get. The closest we get to that sort of cultural assimilation is,
Sports
like
events?
Game of Thrones or sports or politics, and a lot of that has become like, how much do you hate that thing? But with Avengers, it's more aspirational,
So
and just for that reason alone, I think it's worth it.
that's actually a pretty good segue into one of the reasons I brought this whole thing up, which is an article that you sent over, and I just found the producer Kevin Feige, I believe as he called him. I want to call him
It could be
Feige.
Faye, could be Feige. I just say Feige because it sounds cool.
I'm gonna say Kevin Feige. So Kevin Feige, he says that he's not pleased, quote unquote, which I'm sure is a very toned down version of what he really said about the Avengers Endgame being leaked. And I think we're not trying to publicize here that you can watch it illegally. It's more that a movie like this,
Your listeners already know, and they probably already have it if they want it.
But the point is that like you miss something when you don't see it in theaters, because hey, it's seeing it with a crowd for the first time is part of a movie like this.
You don't want your movie bootleg, don't open it in China a week before America. Don't you know this, Kevin? You've been doing this for 11 years. If you open a movie in China, it will be on the internet that night.
Do you think that's what happened? Like,
yes,
is the
absolutely.
leaked version like the Chinese one with English?
Years.
Is the leaked version like the Chinese one with English subtitles, or what?
Well, Chinese movies don't necessarily have Chinese subtitles. They could have French subtitles. They could have
American
Arabic subtitles. They could have anything. So in China, they have subtitle theaters unlike we do, right? China's very different because Chinese people are used to subtitles because of traditional Chinese, which basically means, and this goes back to Mao. I don't want to bore your listeners with a Mao history lesson, but one of the only good things that Mao did, one of the only good things, is he simplified a very crazy writing system. And so people who speak Mandarin, Cantonese, Szechuan, all this stuff, they can read the subtitles. So if you go to a Chinese theater, chances are it's in subtitles. And increasingly, there's more languages there because of migrant workers and everything.
Right.
So that if you put a movie out in China a week before America, it will be online that night, guaranteed. Absolutely, no questions asked. Their bootlegging is so advanced that it will be almost HD quality with stereo sound. And so we're not talking crappy like cam bootlegs where things rocking back and forth. We're talking pretty good ones.
I had friends that worked at movie theaters, and when they actually deliver, like back in the day before you were allowed to connect to the server that's hosting the movie, because now they keep everything on secured servers, and the projectors are like connected to them via the internet, and they can only play them at a certain time. Before that, they have like armed guards with like a briefcase and like a handcuff to the briefcase, and they deliver that thing to a person with two keys that are 2 arms length apart. Movies used to be really, really secure, but now it's just a matter of flip the switch and let the projectors connect to the servers. So
yeah, and they just need to patch through a cable. Look, we're not giving you bootleg advice. Look, see the movie in a theater. I mean, they put billions of dollars into this movie. Enjoy it. Don't watch this watered down version. But Kevin, please, man, you know what's going to happen. You know how this works. So that's what you get.
Yeah, there you go. I'm with you. I don't think this is going to affect the end box. Like
quite the opposite, actually. Quite the opposite. Every study since the beginning of Caveman has shown that the most bootlegged movies are the most successful ones. The most bootlegged songs are the best selling. The most bootlegged books are the best selling. The most bootlegged TV shows. If it's bootlegged, it shows interest, and therefore that interest will manifest itself. But there's absolutely no evidence anywhere showing that bootlegs erode box office or anything. There's no evidence. There's none. In fact, all the opposite.
Yeah, I do recall the study of a couple of years ago that happened, I believe, in the UK, and it was about the most bootlegged television show, which of course was Game of Thrones, and they found that you would think that the TV show with the most bootleg would have the lowest sales, but no, it was actually, like you said,
always.
Yeah, was the
And you can
highest
see
sales.
this. If you don't believe it, you can actually see this effect when movies bomb at the box office. They go on TNT ad nauseum and they become huge hits. Like, go figure, Ben.
I'm trying to think.
Exposure to something lets you experience it.
I'm trying to think of
So
that movie that was leaked and the studio just put it up on Netflix about going to North Korea. The reporters and uh, it was like hacked or whatever, but it was probably leaked by Sony. Do you remember what movie I'm talking about? And Katy Perry's Fireworks was in it.
no, I do know of similar stories. I know that there was a couple cases just this year where leaked prints were out. I
The
know there was a
Interview.
new
There we go. Woo!
Sure.
I can't believe I forgot that.
What is
The
it?
Interview.
Interview. Oh, that was years ago. You said this
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
No, that was years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, it caused a problem. But no, there was a case. Terry Gilliam's what was that movie? The Don Quixote movie was leaked months ago, but it just now came in theaters. There are cases like this because a lot of times there's overlap where movies come out in Britain or China first on DVD or Blu-ray, and therefore bootleggers are allowed a little bit of time to massage and get a good version. And then by the time it comes to American theaters, well, it's already it's well beyond its sell-by date. That's different. But the most famous example I can see that happening was actually the Liam Neeson movie. What's the one where he beats everybody up and
Taken?
he has powers and he has skills?
Taken.
Taken, yeah. Taken was out on Blu-ray a year before it came out in America, in England. It had already been out for a year. So
I
by
didn't
the
know
time
that.
it came here, people could bootleg it if they wanted to. But the word of mouth was so good because of those bootlegs that the movie became a huge, gigantic hit. And I would say a cultural milestone. I think Taken gave us a new Liam Neeson that hasn't quit. He's Action Man now.
Yeah.
And so, again, I'm not here to debate the efficacy of bootlegs, but if I were a Hollywood company, and I know in some cases this has happened, some directors have just put their movies on BitTorrent and said, just pay me if you like it. And they've made money that way too. Pay as you want. So this is why I think Netflix has been so successful, is that what Netflix does, Netflix eliminates the need to bootleg. Like, oh, you already have Netflix. There's no reason to bootleg when you can get a version right away.
They have shown that where one of the reasons that pirating happens is because of a lack of distribution. Where if you want Game of Thrones in the UK, you either had to wait 3 or 4 days or hop online and download it right away. Like it was a matter of distribution more than it was an unwillingness to pay.
Yeah, exactly. Like, if the idea that only privileged people who have HBO can see Game of Thrones, then legally speaking, you can't have Game of Thrones parties. The NFL does not allow you to show Super Bowl parties. Did you know this? They'll shut you down.
I still have a VHS recorder to record my football games.
Exactly. So if HBO wanted, they could say you can't have Game of Thrones parties. You can't do this. But they're not going to say that. That's why they're not really cracking down on the bootlegs either, because they know that everybody who really wants to watch the show is going to watch it. And what's going to happen is going to breed interest in the brand. And interest in the brand is more important than eyeballs today. Because if the brand is successful and powerful, they can exploit it. And that's important. And that's why radio used to be important back in the day. That's why syndicated TV used to be important. It's because it allows you to become a fan, as opposed to being exclusive.
I hear you loud and clear. The money is not made off of the initial airing of something.
No,
it's
not
how
at
many
all.
Funko
Not at
Pop
all.
action figures you can sell after the fact.
Exactly. Like, we have a new John Wick movie coming out, right?
Yeah.
John Wick was one of the most bootleg movies when it came out. No one saw that movie in the theater. They bootlegged the hell out of it. Now we get 2 sequels. This is how it works. Like, it becomes popular after the fact. After the fact. And they know it. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. This is interesting. It's interesting times. But no, if I were Kevin Feige, whatever, he's going to be very happy with the box office of Avengers Endgame. He's going to be very, 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 very happy. And all I got to say is, Disney, do not turn Star Wars into Marvel. It does not work. Don't do it. And don't screw up the Muppets again. Screw them up enough. Stop screwing up the Muppets. I don't want CG Muppets. Stop it. Stop.
Yeah, but how do you feel about the more photorealistic Lion King though?
You mean the clone?
Yeah.
I have nothing against a movie I haven't seen, but when I look at it, I feel like I've seen it. Like, if you're going to remake a movie and you even get some of the voice cast back, why bother? And it's like I feel like I'm watching a high school production.
It's for a new generation. It's not for us. It's for the next one. It's for the next
in
kids.
the 90s, in the 1990s, Disney had this thing where they could double their money by creating cheap made-for-DVD sequels. Aladdin 2, Aladdin 3,
I saw many of them.
Lion King. They even had Lion King 1.5. And eventually they stopped it. And now Disney's doing something similar where they're just rehashing the past by making new versions. And most of these movies tend to make money. I don't think Dumbo is going to be a big blockbuster. And Aladdin looks ghastly. But the fact is that they tend to make money. And that's because creatively Disney seems to have run out of steam.
Well, I think they're also contractually obligated through some kind of written in blood and gold contract with Disney that they have to relaunch every series every 20 years.
They didn't used to do it. They used to do the Disney Vault, where they would release things every 7 years, right?
Yeah.
But look, here's my final thoughts on this. I don't like the Beauty and the Beast. I typically don't like the remakes because I feel like a part of my history is being prostituted and badly. We're not talking like John Carpenter's The Thing or David Cronenberg's The Fly, which were superior to the original versions. We're talking about carbon copies.
We're going to a break right now. So everyone, Nathan Evans, Popzara, we will finish up this thought and then we will go ahead and move on to everyone's favorite Mortal Kombat when we come back. Everyone, stay tuned. More Computer America, Popzara, be right back.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. That's 800-215-4461.
We are all Brother Wolf. 10 years ago, a group of locals banded together to create positive change. We took animals into our homes, held adoption events at local retailers, and talked to the community about our mission to help build a no-kill Asheville. A decade later, we have achieved so many victories for animals in need. There's been so much progress, yet there's still so much to do. As part of our year-long celebration, we encourage you to become a member of our special Compassionate Circle program. With a monthly donation of $10 or more, you will have behind-the-scenes access to the work we are doing at Brother Wolf. Our goal is to reach 1,000 members because we receive no government funding. Working together, we can help build and sustain no-kill communities. Learn more at compassionatecircle.bwar.org. We are a 501c3 tax-deductible organization.
And welcome back to the Computer America Show. It is 32 minutes past the hour, and for everyone out there, if you're just joining us, hey, where have you been? Welcome into the program. We've been talking with none other than Nathan Evans. We spent the first half hour really just kind of taking on Hollywood, I guess we can put it that way.
Well, talking, being lectured by, I've heard both.
Well, hey, it's still been a lot of fun. So if you missed any part of that, check out wherever podcasts are heard. Search Computer America, should pop right up, and you can listen to today's show or any show. It's a lot of fun. So with that being said, Nathan, I want you to finish that thought you were just having, and then we're going to go ahead and move on to Mortal Kombat 11.
Well, let's just move right on. No, look, whatever I was complaining about before, what was I complaining about before the break?
Wow. I was hoping you keep tabs on that. I think it was about Disney re-releasing things.
Oh, yes, Disney re-releasing stuff. So when you look at Beauty and the Beast, when you look at this, I have to watch. They say live action, but there's nothing really live action about it.
It's not.
No, not live action. So it's like people don't.
At best, it's motion capture or motion capture. At best.
There's nothing wrong with remakes, right? There's nothing wrong with the remake, but the problem is that these remakes are so crass. They literally are doing nothing. They're using the original film's storyboards, And in some cases, they're using the original actors back. And again, you can have fun with it, but here's the thing. They're going to come out. They're going to make $1 billion for the most part. They're going to make a lot of money. And people say woo woo. But what's going to happen is they're going to fade because in 10 years, are people, when they want to watch Beauty and the Beast, are they going to reach for the pouty McPout face Emma Watson, whatever her name is, version, the live action version, where the cast can't sing and the special effects look horrible? Or they're going to go for the 1991 nominated for Academy Award for Best Picture animated version, which is superior in every single way. And they're probably going to reach for the animated one. And that's what usually happens. I mean, just because a movie makes money now doesn't mean it's going to continue making money. It's going to come in like a scam, and it's going to make all the money and go away. So it doesn't bother me that Beauty and the Beast is coming out, or The Lion King, or Jungle Book, or Dumbo, or Aladdin, or Pocahontas, or all this stuff. We're going to see Lilo and Stitch is going to be live action. I don't know how that's going to happen. We always have the originals, and as long as the originals are around, I'll be happy.
Yeah, probably photorealistic, kind of like the Lion King, but it's going to be Lilo and Stitch instead. And you're right, probably live action people. But I digress. Let's go ahead, move on. Plenty of time on that one. And you put in special parentheses here on Switch. For those of you who do not know about Mortal Kombat, Mortal Kombat has been one of my favorite video games for a long, long time. Although I would say like the last time I played one was like Mortal Kombat like 7. It's been a little while, but as far as button mashing arcade games go, Mortal Kombat is up there with Tekken and and all the other greats. So, but one thing that Mortal Kombat has really tapped into, especially in the last couple of iterations, is that it has become over the top B horror movie style gruesomeness. And that's why I guess I'm kind of surprised to see it on Switch as well.
It's definitely embraced its silliness in a way that I think is necessary. People forget that Mortal Kombat originally came out as a counteraction to Street Fighter II, which was a more serious fighting game. And I mean, I'm not going to make this argument. Mortal Kombat was a bad fighting game, but it was popular and it did things no other fighting game did at the time. It looked photoreal, it had blood, and it had a personality, and I'll give it credit. The games got better until they stopped being better. At some point, they started being lousy. And what happened is we saw like the dormancy of the fighting game genre, and we've, in recent years, in the last 10 years or so, we've seen it resurge, but not as an arcade fighter. The arcades are pretty much dead. I'm sorry, Herman Exum, but they're dead. And so the new arcade is online. It's esports, and that's fine. Street Fighter V just came out a couple years ago. 3 years ago? Street Fighter V. Mortal Kombat, which came out after, is on 11. So that lets you know. So Mortal Kombat 11, I haven't played it. Our mutual friend Corey is playing it. He likes it quite a bit. For those who don't know, Mortal Kombat 10, which came out a couple years ago, Mortal Kombat X, was a very popular esports game. It was a mainstay. It was very controversial. I don't know if you know this, Ben, but they kind of screwed over the PC people who bought it because they promised the world and they delivered nothing. And the idea that Mortal Kombat 11, which, have you seen the graphics? Very impressive graphics.
Yeah, they're good. They're good.
I don't like the visual style, but I don't like the visual style of the company NetherRealm, is it? Like they tend to make really bad styled games. Like they did the Injustice games. Have you seen that where they matched Superman with Mortal Kombat? Like just hideous art design. Whoever does it, just hideous, stupid. But the graphics are good. I've been a promoter of the Switch as an alternative console, but every once in a while, they're proving that they could do magic with this thing. And they didn't show a lot of the Switch version, but the idea that you could play a big budget, fully capable, fully compatible version of this game on the launch day alongside Xbox One and PS4 versions, Ben, has never happened before. This is the first time. And this is important because I mentioned esports, something I do not care a fig about. I don't care. I saw people playing Madden football on ESPN the other day, and I thought, what a world we live in where I'm watching ESPN and people are playing fake football. It doesn't work for me. And I don't think it works for most people. I think there's no way you can make it look cool.
Personally, if there was an option at a sports bar, and I know there are bars out there that cater specifically to this audience, but if there was a sports bar and they had football on one screen and Overwatch League on another, I'd sit there and eat my chicken wings and watch video games over football.
It can't be ESPN, though. ESPN is a TV format. Look at you. You're on Twitch right now. You're on Twitch, right? You're on Twitch. You're not on ESPN. If you're on ESPN, no offense, I wouldn't want you. There's no cheerleaders. And I do not want to see you in a tutu. But the fact that, well, some people might, and if they do, Patreon is easy.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, going forward, Mortal Kombat 11 here. I haven't played the game yet myself. Of course, I never do. But by every person that is on the staff that has played it, and everybody I know, the game is exactly the same. It's just, of course, visually degraded, but not visually degraded in a way that makes it prohibitive. In fact, the game even runs at 60 frames a second, but the whole game is there. And so the Switch has become a very competitive esports machine. And here's why. Have you ever been to an esports tournament? Have you ever been to a tournament or a convention? It's really hard to bring your PlayStation and Xbox to a hotel.
Yeah.
You got to bring the console, TV, whatever. With the Switch, it's in your backpack, right, or in your purse. And the Switch has become home to several big games. Forgetting Nintendo games, you have the Dragon Ball Fighter Z, you have BlazBlue, Guilty Gear, Street Fighter. You have all this stuff, and plus you have two big hits. You have Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, which is they just announced sold 13 million copies. That's insane. That's insane. And then you have Pokemon. And so the Switch has become a competitive machine, and it might be the right console at the right time for this sort of thing. And yeah, so if you could put Mortal Kombat in with the mix, a version that plays exactly the same, that's a big opportunity. That's a really big thing.
So, and of course, speaking about the Switch, and we're just going to go ahead and jump right into it. There's been a couple rumors about the Switch as well, and that's the first one, which I'm not sure if the one that the story here. I've heard tell of a cheaper Switch coming out. I don't know if that covers that in this article, but also E3, and I guess it was supposed to be announced at E3, but Nintendo is shooting that down really, really quickly.
Yeah, because Nintendo's not stupid. Here's what it goes. Nintendo has become like Apple. You know how, like a couple of months before Apple announces, we always have the rumors. The app, I think the new rumor is the next iPad's going to have a mouse cursor. It's just complete drivel and speculation. People are fan
leaks
guessing.
Are part, and trust me, working in this industry for a while now, the leaks are part of the product launch.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean the leaks are there, right? And the idea that Nintendo's working on a new console, of course, is true. Here's the thing. The Switch is selling like gangbusters. It's selling very well. There's a report that it didn't hit analysts' figures, but it sold 35 million in 2 years. That's outstanding for Nintendo. That's outstanding for anybody. By video game estimates, that's outstanding. That's very good. It's outsold the Xbox One. Okay, let's just say that. So here's the thing. But you know what's not selling? The 3DS. Nintendo has done everything they could to make people want to buy the system. It's just outlived its lifespan. It's almost 10 years old.
Yeah.
And Nintendo traditionally makes the bulk of their money on portables, and the Switch has carried that niche, but they need that revenue. So the idea would be, do we make another 3DS and have dual tandem systems, or do we just continue the Switch, and create a handheld version? To me, it makes sense to make a iterative version of the Switch. I'm not going to sit here and guide Nintendo on this, but the idea that Nintendo would have to make an iterative system to compete, they've done it before, Ben. It was a disaster. It was called the DSi. It was a slightly better version of the DS with a camera and a better processor and an app store. Didn't sell. They did it before with something called the new 3DS, which was, again, slightly better processor, extra button. Disaster. What Nintendo usually does is they usually cut features off systems. They did this with the Wii. They did this with the 3DS became the 2DS. The idea that they would have a scaled back Switch to make up for the lack of 3DS sales makes sense to me. The idea that they're going to have a more powerful Switch, it just sounds like fanboy conjecture. I've been in this conversation for months about whether Nintendo was going to release a new system, and I'm on record as saying I don't think they're going to release a new system this year. It doesn't make any sense, because when you say there's a new system coming, people hold off buying it now. Look at Microsoft. Microsoft shot themselves in the foot. I have never seen a company mismanage a video game division as Microsoft. Hey, buy this Xbox One S. By the way, next year we got Project Scorpio coming out, so that's going to be cool. Why would anybody buy it now if there's going to be a better one?
I know that I certainly fell into that. I can totally, in my head, I can totally imagine that sometime either later this year or early next year, the Switch comes out with one that does not have detachable paddles or anything like that. Think of it kind of like a Game Boy Advance mixed with a Switch, but
I don't know, because every time you do something like that, you break compatibility, and that's the problem for developers. Is that developers need a base model. They need something to use.
I guess that's true.
I mean, but again, the Switch has very advanced rumble features. Have you used the rumble on the Switch? It's outstanding.
I have not.
It's the best.
I have not.
It's very good. It's I don't want to use this. I'm going to use this word in the old English style. It's very erotic, and I don't mean like sexual. It just means it's very erogenous. Like,
evokes
wow, that feels
emotion,
interesting.
right?
Like,
I
it's
got
very
you.
different. Like, when you play Wolfenstein on the Switch, the rumble conforms to the gun. You're like, this is interesting. I like this. It's very cool. But look, they just announced a new console with no disc in it. You probably saw it. It's
Yeah.
the most laughable thing I've ever seen. Laughable. It's disaster.
It's cheaper.
And
It's cheaper. That's
no,
that was the
no,
goal.
it's not. No, it's not. It's
it-
actually more expensive.
I
It's
thought it was $50 or
$250.
$30 cheaper.
No, it's $250. It's $249. On Microsoft's own website, you can buy a better Xbox One S with a disc, and which, by the way, that disc isn't just a disc. That disc means DVD, Blu-ray, 4K Blu-ray, backwards compatibility, rentals, borrowing, Redbox. Can't do any of that stuff with a discless. So no thanks. And it's the same design. They didn't even bother creating a new design. Just cheap. Took it off. And the reason they took it off so they don't have to pay Blu-ray licensing fees. But we're going to see more with Microsoft at E3. We're going to see interesting things with Nintendo. Sony is going to announce Vaporware PS5 that's going to promise the world and then eventually underdeliver on every account. Sony, if you're listening, shut up with 8K. Don't do that. Don't do this. Don't even start. After your debacle with 5G at CES, you'd think people are into your scams. Nobody cares about 8K. Don't do this. Don't do this.
We were actually in talks with Sony to get them on the show to come talk to us. But Sony, if you're listening, please.
You have nothing to say. It's fiction. You might as well talk to George R.R. Martin and ask how he feels about the last season of Game of Thrones that he didn't write.
I have nothing to say to George R.R. Martin because he refuses to finish his books, and therefore
that's why
mad.
the TV show had to finish it because the creator was lazy. So all I'm saying is, don't talk about 8K. I don't care about ray tracing. We've all been burned by ray tracing. You know what, Sony? If you want to make a good PS5 or whatever you want to call it, by the way, if they end up calling it PS Plus, like with the plus sign, you heard it here first. But if you want to make a good console, here's what you do. Make better games. You have this new game that came out today, Days Gone By. Looks so derivative. Make better games. Like
I saw like the cover art of that, and I saw like 5 minutes of gameplay, and I was like, did they remake The Last of Us?
Yeah, I was going to say, no, I wish. It's more like, hey, can we do State of Decay, but with less personality? Look, all I'm saying is make better games. People buy games. You know why the Switch has sold so well? Games.
I have seen a lot of excitement. I have seen a lot of excitement about and this is kind of a re-release, which seems to be a theme here on the show today. But the Master Chief Collection for the Xbox, and they're actually reopening Halo 2 and 3 servers so that people can go back and play Halo 2 and 3 on PC.
Well, they're bringing it on PC. They're going to bring it on PC.
Yeah.
And don't be surprised. I know this sounds crazy to you, but don't be surprised if it comes out on Switch. Like, don't be surprised at this point because nobody knows what's going on with these companies. I just know that it seems that the future seems to be. Did you know that Sony has actually removed all of digital game codes from Amazon and stores? You can no longer buy digital game codes.
I think I heard of that. Yeah. So
you can't do it.
only get them
you can't
through
do
them.
it.
Yeah.
And so Microsoft and Sony are both receding in the way they do their digital delivery. Nintendo, on the other hand, is expanding with partnerships with Twitch and Amazon. Who knows what's going on? It's going to be interesting. We'll be at E3. I'm sending a few people this year. Probably the last time I'm going to send people at E3 because the show is circling the toilet bowl of relevance. I'll just say, and it is the biggest turd. But even a turd has nuggets of truth, and so there might be some nuggets, some juicy corn nuggets of truth that we can share with listeners at E3 this year. I hope so, because I hate that show. I hate E3. If you're listening, I hate you.
I'm so disgusted, but at the same time,
you know this, and you know how I feel about E3.
Yeah.
But the fact is, it is what it is. It is what it is.
And of course, we look forward to seeing Popzara's, of course, coverage of E3 when you send people out there. But with that being said, let's go ahead and move on. We have a couple more minutes. We can hit a couple of your other topics, and let's after bashing Microsoft and Xbox and things like that.
By the way, Microsoft, are you segueing into the story about Microsoft?
I am segueing. Yes.
Okay, this is good news for them. So, after all my criticism how badly they mismanage things, Microsoft is now the most valuable company in the world. So,
are they more valued than Amazon at this point? Are they more valued than Amazon at this point?
Yes.
Okay.
It goes up and down. It goes up and down. Like this is very little meaning to reality, but they hit $1 trillion, and that's a lot.
Yeah,
And
and for everyone out there, this is something that I did when Amazon crossed the mark, when Apple crossed the mark, so I should do it when Microsoft crosses the mark. $1 trillion in market capitalization, and what that means is that if you took every bit of goodwill, every piece of machinery, every skilled employee, if you took every asset that Microsoft had claimed to and sold it for the top, or at least the market value, they would have $1 trillion. But if you saw Microsoft starting to sell off huge chunks of the company, if they were selling off the desk lamps on people's desks, trying to get $1 trillion out of it, no, everything would come crashing down and they would get a fraction of $1 trillion. They do not have $1 trillion, but they are valued at $1 trillion. There's a big difference.
yes, very, very, very different. And one thing I want you to look at, if your readers can't see it, is the way Microsoft does. They hide. What they do is they hide failing sectors inside good sectors. So, for example, most of their money comes now from online services, and I can attest to this, that Office is a huge moneymaker for Microsoft, enormous. I know I give them my money every year. It's a good product, and it works really well. But if you looked at it, like for example, they put LinkedIn with Office, right?
Yeah.
LinkedIn is a money loser, but Office is a money maker. So you don't see the failure of LinkedIn relative to Office because it's hiding. Same way would they snuggle Xbox inside the Windows. They snuggle Xbox and Surface inside the they fold it into it. This is an old trick. That way, investors can't necessarily see what the money losers are. They've been doing this. They used to call it Services Division, but now it's just Microsoft Windows Division.
Right. It's definitely restructuring, but I will say that looking at what's making them the most money, like you said, Office, and I think Azure Cloud, just like Amazon out there. If you think that Amazon is making money hand over fist and getting your toilet paper to you in 2 days, no, they're making money on the Amazon Web Services.
Yes.
So,
Is it AW3? Is it?
AWS.
Yeah. But every time you watch Netflix, that's Amazon. Every time you watch Amazon, that's Amazon. Like Amazon's web services are so huge and so big, and if I were Google, I would be quaking.
I think even Apple's iTunes and iCloud services use Amazon. Yeah,
it could be. Yeah, I know Azure's pretty good too. Like they make the fact that there's at least two giant companies that are so successful. The interesting thing, I would
and sorry to jump in here, but there's three. There's Microsoft, Google, and Amazon. All three run cloud services for everyone. Yeah.
But I will say this, though, that you have these three disparate companies that are technically rivals, but they work in tandem with each other. And this is the way rivals usually do. It's like if you study the history of war, the history of war is usually the history of, at the very tippy top, like different countries, different nations, different whatever, having more in common and actually being a lot friendlier with each other than they would let on. It's usually the battle goes with the fans and the battle goes with the armies. But when it comes to this, though, if I were Google, I would be quaking in my boots, like I said, if Amazon ever decides to turn on advertising the way they promised they would, because I would be interesting to see what would happen if these markets went after each other really competitively. Not like, oh, you didn't put YouTube app on my Google TV or whatever. I'm talking real rivalry.
The only move that Google has made in this space was partnering with Walmart and trying to get the integration between Google and Walmart and having things delivered to your door. I think that there's so much going on right now that all of them see potential growth in all the different areas that each one isn't capitalizing on. So like there's no reason to fight one another when there's still so much room to grow in other places.
And just for the record, Google and Amazon have a lot more in common in the same way Microsoft and Apple have a lot more in common. You don't see outreaches of Microsoft into space firmly entrenched by Google anymore the way you could. Like you see the companies testing it. Like you'll see Amazon come out with a phone, or Microsoft will come out with a phone, or they might test the game services, they might test the servers, they might test the online thing. Apple will create an online collaboration tool. But no real innovation or outreach in those markets. Those are just test markets.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's funny how they line up, and people complain and they gripe about Google this and Google that. I know I do, but at the end of the day, Gmail is still the best email, and Google Drive is still the best collaboration software. And I complain about Microsoft, but Windows is still the best OS. No offense to Linux people out there, you keep the flame alive, and Office is still the best productivity suite. like these are facts. These are facts, and it's confirmed by users' continued patronage, and that's just how it goes until something else better comes along.
And I do like the article or at least this quote from Microsoft saying that no one within Microsoft is giving each other high fives just because the stock hit a new high. It's something that I guess investors care about, and it's a nice big round number, and we care about it. But it doesn't technically mean that
It's just
we enter a new phase of
stock.
Microsoft.
They know it. They know it. And by the way, the other thing is that we're in a huge economy burst right now. Like, for those who don't know, the American economy is doing gangbusters right now. Did you see the story today about, was it the GNP or GDP? What was it?
Not today,
GDP is up 3.2%. It was projected at 3, right? It's up a quarter more than that. That's outstanding. Like, the money is raining down right now for investment. If you're a banker, if you're a venture capitalist, if you're anybody, basically, if you invest wisely right now, the return on your investment is going to be tenfold. That's amazing. Of course, this stock is going to be good. Of course, these things are going to be good, as long as they don't screw it up.
Yep. There you go. So, and let's see, with that being said, we have about 5 minutes left, and I really wanted to hit these two as quickly as we can. Just real quick, I'm not even going to really get into it, but Epic Games throws down an ultimatum for Steam. I saw this. I did not dig into it, but for everyone out there who has been kind of in the dark, real quick, Epic Games Store has been releasing more and more exclusives. They've pulled some of EA's and, well, not EA's, but many of Epic games that were supposed to come out on Steam, they pulled them and made them exclusive for the Epic Games Store. Essentially, consumers are a little on one side or the other, saying that the Epic Games Store is dividing the market, and Epic Games Store says, well, Steam isn't paying developers enough money. So there's this whole tit for tat. What's going on here?
Long story short, I have been on record as saying I think Valve is an incompetently run company that has been juicing their users for way too long. Not necessarily because they're not a good company. I mean, Steam's a pretty good service, but it's the only real service. I mean, when you look at Origins, if you look at Uplay, these are garbage services. Steam has done a really good job of corralling the market, but it's also been a very evil company in the way it's done this. It's legitimately gone after Microsoft in the past. It's tried to create its proprietary things. They've misled consumers about Macintosh support. They've misled consumers about Linux support. They've misled hardware manufacturers about hardware support. They've done nothing to innovate this market whatsoever. They've sat on their tushies, and they've allowed competitors like Epic Games Store to grow. And I've said this before on this show. You know this. I'm very critical of Gabe Newell. I've said this, and I think I've said this specifically, that if another challenger were to come along, they could easily wipe Steam off the map. Because when you become the dominant service of anything, you allow yourself to be overwhelmed by a more creative innovator. And Epic Games, everything was there. Fortnite, the Unreal Engine, everything was in place for them to displace Steam's Valve Steam. I can't even get these things right. The Drip company. And all I'm saying is that after we saw Steam OS crash and burn, after we saw these misleading headlines, and we saw Steam continue to exercise their monopolistic powers on user reviews and this and that, they became a company that people should not have supported. And you saw other companies rise up. You saw Humble Bumble, you saw Green Man Gaming, you saw these companies, but it was ripe for a real competitor. And it was only going to happen from another legitimate company. And Epic Games parlayed a lot of that success from Fortnite into a legitimate competitor. And I'll be honest with you, if you speak to developers, they love it. They're getting more money back, and their support is good. Now, I don't think, from what I understand, I haven't tried it, but the Epic Games Store is not as good or robust as Steam yet. It's brand new. Whether it remains to be a true competitor, I don't know. But the gauntlet is thrown down. Steam can either evolve and survive or die. And that's what's going to happen.
I think that in the position that Steam is in, they were looking at, because they were the only game in town, so the 70-30 split really, it was a lot of money, but at the same time, if you wanted sales, that's where you went. I'm happy that Epic is doing this. I don't like how Epic has a couple of their exclusives that they've pulled, really out from the developers' feet and said, hey, you were going to be on Steam and now you're not, including having pre-sales that they had to refund. But if they get Steam to say, okay, we're going to take a 20-80 split instead of a 30-70 split, that's going to be good for developers. That's going to be good for the gaming industry. So I like what they're doing there.
Well, exactly. If you buy a game on a console, that's one thing. You're limited to the platform. But on PC, it should be platform agnostic, and that's the real problem. Is that you have a billion launchers, right? Like every time I turn on Uplay to play Far Cry, I gotta open up a Google Authenticator app, and I gotta do all this rigmarole because someone in Singapore, or Malaysia, stole my account and turned my character into a transgender. Now, I have no problem with any of those things
Every
individually,
day.
But my problem is that they did better at the game than I did. So, but the thing is, you got to do Steam, Uplay, you got to do two-thread authentication. With a console, you don't got to worry about that. So you accept the limitations of the ecosystem, correct? Same with iOS, same with Android, because that's baked into it. But when it comes to PC, where it's anything goes, then you increasingly have these restrictions that don't make a lot of sense. And so, I think what we might be looking at as Steam becoming, or Epic's becoming like an Amazon. Like I can buy games off Amazon, but when I buy a game off Amazon, I buy a Steam code or a Uplay code, or I can't buy a disc anymore. So things are changing. I think it's held. Look, you know me, I'm a capitalist. Competition is extremely good, and I will tell you, there's been one case in general where a developer has said that their game sold better on Epic Games than it ever sold on Steam because of this, and that was the Metro Exodus game that came out. Sold much better on Epic Game Stores than it ever did on Steam, and the developers love it. And a lot of developers seem to like working with Epic.
You're absolutely right. And Nathan, I'm sure that it's very, very subtle for you in the background, but there's music playing. If people want to find more about you, your writing, your employees' writings, where can they go and what can they find there?
Go see Avengers.
Go see Avengers. Check out popzara.com. We'll have a link to it in the show notes. Everyone, have a great weekend. Bye, everyone.
Bye.